Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret life of metal. It really seems like some kind of magic, doesn't it? You start with this glowing, almost alive liquid metal, and somehow it turns into these solid, reliable things we depend on every single day. So, how on earth does that happen? You see, this whole amazing transformation, it really hinges on one big idea, a single concept that lets us tell metal what shape to become. And that big idea is called casting. Honestly, it's a process you've probably already done yourself. Seriously, if you've ever made ice cubes, you've done a type of casting. You take a liquid, water, pour it into a shaped container, what we call a mold, and you let it get solid. With metal, we're doing the exact same thing, just, at a way, way higher temperature. Okay, so let's take a virtual trip into the foundry and actually follow the metal on its journey, from a solid chunk to a brand new shape. Right, first things first, you need a mind-boggling amount of energy. We're talking about temperatures hitting over 1,500 degrees Celsius just for steel. It's that intense heat that breaks apart the strong bonds in the solid metal, turning it into this liquid that's ready to be reshaped. Now, you can't just use any old bucket to handle this liquid fire. You need a very special toolkit. It all starts in the crucible. That's where the metal gets melted down. Then it's carried around in a giant vessel called a ladle. And to make sure the pour is super smooth and controlled, which is absolutely critical, it often flows through a Tundish. Think of it like a precision funnel that guides the metal right into its final destination, the mold. So, once all the gear is in place, the whole thing really boils down to just three main actions. You've got the pouring, the cooling, as all that heat escapes, and then the most important step of all, solidification. And this, right here, is where the magic really happens. Solidification isn't just about the metal getting cold. No, it's the actual moment of creation. It's when billions of atoms, all zipping around randomly in the liquid, suddenly snap into place, locking into a strong, ordered crystalline structure. That transition from total chaos to perfect order is what gives metal all its strength. And check this out. This is what's happening on a microscopic level. So in the liquid state, see, the atoms are all over the place. But as it cools, it hits this mushy zone. In there, tiny little crystals that metallurgists call grains start to form, kind of like individual snowflakes forming in a cloud. As it keeps cooling, those grains grow bigger and bigger until they all lock together, building that super strong, rigid structure of the final solid piece. So cool. Okay, so we've poured the metal. It's solidified. But what have we actually made? Well, the first things that come out of casting aren't usually complex engine parts. They're these simple, primary shapes, the basic building blocks for almost everything else. What's so wild is that pretty much every metal object starts as one of these basic forms. A huge ingot? That might just be stored or get remelted later. A big, wide slab? That's what's going to be rolled out into the thin sheet metal for a car body. A long billet could become something like rebar, while a thicker bloom has enough heft to be shaped into those massive I-beams that make up the skeletons of our tallest buildings. But creating these perfect shapes, it's not as easy as just pouring the metal and walking away. The real skill, the art of it all, is in managing the problems that pop up during that critical cooling phase. The goal always is a perfect, dense, totally uniform solid. But the reality is that as metal cools down and shrinks, it can kind of fight back. And in that fight, imperfections, or what we call defects, can form, and those can seriously weaken the final product. So let me introduce you to the villains of the casting story. First up is shrinkage. It can create hidden empty spaces or voids deep inside the metal, a perfect weak spot. Then there's porosity. This happens when tiny gas bubbles get trapped, basically turning the metal into a sponge. Not exactly what you want holding up a bridge, right? And of course, surface defects can become the starting point for cracks. Preventing these isn't just about making things look good, it's about safety. It's about reliability. This is where the real science comes in. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Making a strong piece of metal isn't just about having the right shape mold. It's about truly understanding the physics of how it cools and solidifies so you can stop those flaws before they even start. But here's the thing about metal. That moment of becoming solid is rarely the end of its story. In fact, it's usually just one part of a much bigger and potentially endless cycle. That's because one of metal's greatest superpowers is that it's designed for a second, third, and fourth life. A remelt is exactly what it sounds like. You take old scrap metal and just start the whole casting process over again. And reheating is when you take those solid billets and slabs we just made, get them hot and soft again, and get them ready for their next adventure, like being rolled or forged into something new. And this all leads to a truly staggering fact. Many common metals like aluminum and steel are 100% recyclable. That means you can melt them down and reshape them again and again and again with absolutely zero loss in quality. It is a truly sustainable material. So the next time you see any metal object, just remember that fiery journey it took from a chaotic liquid to a strong solid. The thing is, we don't really use up metal, we just borrow it. We give it a job to do. And when that job is done, we can melt it down and give it a whole new life. So the only real question left is, what will we ask it to become next?